The sound wasn't human. It was sharp and wet, the kind of noise that cuts straight through chatter and makes your stomach twist before your brain even catches up. 1 second, there was the faint squeak of sneakers, the hum of fluorescent lights, and Miss Whitfield's voice drilling through another lecture about personal responsibility. The next second, the entire classroom witnessed it. Her knee slammed into the face of a 16-year-old girl. The crack echoed off the walls like a gunshot. Then came silence, the kind that feels like drowning. A drop of blood traced the curve of Amara Raines' lip, fell onto the white tile, and bloomed into a small red flower. Someone dropped a phone. Another whispered, "Oh my God." The air smelled of iron and chalk dust. Ms. Whitfield froze, her hands still raised in the air, as if she could somehow erase what she'd just done. Her eyes went wide, then narrow, then hollow. "Don't you dare look at me like that," she hissed, voice trembling between anger and panic. "You disrespected me." Amara didn't move. Her eyes, a dark brown so deep they seemed to swallow the light, locked on her teacher's face. No tears, no trembling, just silence. The kind of silence that makes even guilt hold its breath. Her classmates stared, phones half raised, unsure whether to keep recording or run. "Say something, miss," Whitfield demanded, stepping forward again, desperate now, as if dominance could patch the gaping hole in her authority. Amara spoke, calm, measured, almost tender. "You done?" It wasn't defiance. It was a mirror. Ms. Whitfield blinked, realizing too late that this girl's calm wasn't fear. It was composure, the kind only found in people who've seen power before and know what it really looks like. Amara reached for her backpack, blood still trailing from her nose. She wiped it with the back of her hand, leaving a crimson streak across her cheek, and turned to leave. The door's slow click shut was louder than the knee that started it all. No one moved. The students stared at Ms. Whitfield, as if seeing her for the first time, stripped of her polite smile, her neatly ironed blazer, her illusion of control. In the hallway, Amara walked alone. Each step was slow, deliberate, echoing against lockers painted a tired gray. She didn't cry, didn't curse, didn't even check the bruise forming on her cheek. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. It was already happening. Someone had uploaded the video. By the time she reached the school's front doors, her face was everywhere, a frozen frame of pain and poise. The headline reading, "Teacher assaults black teen in classroom." But headlines she knew were just the surface. The real story, the one no one could see, was already being written in quiet boardrooms across the city. Because while everyone else saw a girl, Amara Raines was not just anyone's daughter. She was the only child of Naomi Raines, the billionaire CEO of Raines Holdings, a woman whose empire stretched from real estate towers to hospitals, tech startups to political donations. A woman who had been underestimated her entire life, until she owned half the skyline that once refused her loans. But Amara never bragged, never flashed her family name. She wanted normalcy, something money couldn't buy. So she enrolled under her mother's maiden name, Amara Ellis, hoping for anonymity, until that afternoon. Now her anonymity lay shattered, scattered across the internet in shaky video clips and screaming comment threads. Within hours, hashtags exploded. Hashtag justice for Amara, hashtag teacher fired, now hashtag black girl silence. Local news vans circled the school before sunset. Students whispered in the hallways, their eyes wide with equal parts fear and fascination. Miss Whitfield tried to act normal, to keep teaching as if nothing happened. But every face in the room was a mirror reflecting her guilt back at her. When the principal finally called her to the office, she went pale. On his desk lay a single printed email, short and devastating. "Pending immediate review. We are initiating an independent investigation regarding the incident with student Amara Ellis. Please cooperate fully. Raines Legal Division, Whitfield frowned. Raines, she muttered, not recognizing the name. Who's that? The principal looked up, his face gray. You don't know? That night, 3 black SUVs rolled up to the school. Security cameras caught men in tailored suits carrying documents and talking to the board members. The janitor, mopping the hallway, overheard one whisper. The mother's not pressing charges yet, but she owns 2 of their largest endowments. The janitor crossed himself. Lord have mercy, he said quietly. Meanwhile, Amara sat in her bedroom, lights dim, the city skyline glowing through her window. She stared at her reflection, the bruise now purpling beneath her left eye. Her mother stood behind her, calm as ever, silk robe tied neatly, voice low. You okay? Naomi asked. Amara nodded. I'm fine. Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder. You shouldn't have to be fine, baby. Amara looked at her through the mirror. I don't want to sue her. Her mother arched a brow. You sure? Yes. Amara's voice hardened. I want something better. Naomi smiled slowly. That small, dangerous smile that once made entire boardrooms go silent. Better, huh? Amara turned back to the mirror, tracing the bruise like a battle mark. I want her to understand who she hit. Outside, thunder rolled over the city, and the lights of Raines Tower blinked against the clouds like sentinels waking up. Because tomorrow, the teacher who thought she could destroy a girl's dignity was going to learn that she hadn't just attacked a student. She'd provoked an empire. And if you think Amara was just another victim, keep watching. Because the real story doesn't start with that knee. It starts with what happens after. Stay with me. What's coming next will change everything you thought you knew about power, silence, and revenge. By sunrise, the video had circled the internet 5 times over. On TikTok, it played with slow-motion edits and angry captions. On Twitter, it sparked threads 100 comments deep. On YouTube, influencers debated it like it was a crime documentary. And through it all, one question kept repeating. Who is Amara Ellis? At first, people thought she was just another student from the East Side. Quiet, book-smart, invisible. But the details didn't fit. The car that picked her up after the assault was a black Rolls-Royce Cullinan. Tinted windows, custom plates that read RNS1. The driver wore a suit, not a school uniform. And when a reporter tried to approach the car, the man simply said, "No comment," and handed her a card embossed in gold. Raines Private Security. That name again. Raines. The rumor spread faster than the video itself. By lunch, students were whispering, "Yo, she's rich. Others said, her mom's like a lawyer or something. A few claimed she was the mayor's niece. In the teacher's lounge, Ms. Whitfield sat in a corner, hands shaking around a cup of coffee gone cold. Her colleagues avoided her, pretending to scroll their phones. Only Mr. Alvarez, the history teacher, spoke up. You need to get a lawyer, he said quietly. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter, he interrupted. That girl's family. They're not ordinary. Whitfield frowned. She's a student. Alvarez leaned closer. You don't remember that building downtown? Raines Tower? Her family owns it. Whitfield blinked. That's not possible. But the look on his face told her it was. That afternoon, she got a call from the principal. You're suspended pending investigation, he said flatly. You're joking. I wish I were. The school board's in emergency session. Something about corporate liability. The line went dead. Whitfield sank into her chair, eyes darting to the window. Across the street, news vans had already begun to gather. She pulled the blinds shut, but that didn't stop the pounding in her chest. Meanwhile, Amara was nowhere to be found. She didn't return to school, didn't post online, didn't respond to messages from friends or journalists. But her silence only made her myth grow louder. By Thursday, the local paper published an article titled, From Classroom to Corporate Boardroom? Mystery Student Linked to Billionaire Raines Family. The comments section exploded. Some defended her. Some attacked her. Most just speculated. One post read, if it's true she's a Raines, That teacher's career is over. Another. Money doesn't buy respect. She should have kept her mouth shut, but Amara wasn't reading comments. She was sitting in a conference room high above the city, next to her mother, surrounded by lawyers. Naomi Raines sat at the head of the table, back straight, eyes sharp. Around her, the city's top legal minds waited for her signal. "I want it clean," Naomi said. "No lawsuits. No press conferences. No noise." The head lawyer adjusted his glasses. "You're sure you don't want to press charges?" Naomi smiled faintly. "Why settle for punishment when we can rebuild the entire system?" Amara's gaze flicked toward her mother. "Mom," Naomi reached out and took her hand. "They tried to humiliate you." "I don't fix humiliation with court papers, Amara. I fix it with power." The lawyers nodded, taking notes. Outside, rain streaked the windows. The skyline shimmered in gray and gold, every building bearing a name, and half of those names belonged to her. When the meeting ended, Amara stayed behind. "Mom," she said quietly, "you're not going to hurt anyone, right?" Naomi looked at her daughter, the bruise now a shadow under her eye. "No, baby. I don't hurt people. I remind them who they are." That evening, the principal received a private call. The number was unlisted. "This is Naomi Raines," said the voice on the line. "You don't know me, but you know my daughter. I'm coming to your office tomorrow morning. Don't be late." Then she hung up. He sat frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear, until his secretary knocked. "Sir, Channel 9 wants a statement about the incident." He exhaled. "Tell them no comment." By Friday, the city was holding its breath. The teacher's photo was plastered across every news site. The school district's inbox overflowed with hate mail. Parents protested outside the gates, waving signs that read, "Protect our students and justice for Amara." Inside her penthouse, Amara stood by the window, watching the chaos unfold below. The bruise on her cheek had faded to yellow. The hurt hadn't. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Ms. Ellis, we'd like to schedule an interview." "Good morning, America," she deleted it. Then another message came in, this time from an old classmate. "You okay? Heard your mom owns half the city." Amara smiled faintly. "Half's an exaggeration." She typed, then deleted the reply, because the truth was stranger than exaggeration. Her family didn't just own buildings. They owned influence. Political campaigns, philanthropic foundations, media shares. Quiet power that moved silently, unseen, until provoked. And for the first time, it had been provoked. That night, Naomi entered her daughter's room holding a folder. "What's that?" Amara asked. Naomi set it down. "The school's financial statements. Their funding's fragile. Half their endowment comes from donors who report to me." Amara frowned. "You're going to pull the funding?" Her mother's eyes softened. "No, darling. I'm going to buy it." Amara stared at her, speechless. "You wanted something better than a lawsuit," Naomi continued. "Let's start there." Thunder rolled again outside. Somewhere downtown, the Raines Tower lights blinked awake. The next morning, the front page headline read, "Raines Holdings initiates acquisition talks with Westbridge Academy." The school hadn't even processed her suspension yet. And if you think that's where the story ends, stay close, because this was just the opening move in a war no one saw coming. For days, the city could talk about nothing else. The girl who got kneed in the face had vanished. Yet somehow her shadow stretched across every headline, every classroom, every dinner table. And behind that silence was something the public couldn't define, a quiet authority that felt both ancient and new. The truth was, the Raines name had been woven into the city's foundations long before Amara ever walked through those school doors. Naomi Raines didn't inherit wealth. She forged it, brick by brick, betrayal by betrayal. 25 years earlier, she was a single mother fresh out of Spelman, working 2 jobs, cleaning office floors in the same downtown tower she now owned. She used to press her face against the elevator glass and whisper to herself, "One day, I'll buy this floor. And one day, She did. Naomi built Raines Holdings from a $20,000 savings pool and a dream that refused to die. She bought abandoned properties in neglected black neighborhoods when no one else would touch them, rebuilt them, rented them, and reinvested. Her company's motto, carved into marble at headquarters, read, "Power built on silence lasts the longest." That motto wasn't metaphorical. It was survival. She'd learned early that noise attracts vultures, reporters, competitors, men who smile while planning to steal. So she moved quietly, built quietly, conquered quietly. By the time the city realized what she'd become, she already owned 47 buildings, 12 tech subsidiaries, and 2 sitting city council members. Now, her daughter Amara inherited that silence like an heirloom. But silence wasn't the absence of feeling. It was a language all its own. While the school board scrambled under public outrage, Amara sat in the garden behind the Raines Tower, a glass courtyard surrounded by fountains and orchids that shimmered under rainlight. Her tutor sat across from her, trying to guide her through calculus, but she wasn't listening. "Miss Raines?" the tutor asked softly. Amara blinked, coming back from wherever her mind had gone. You've been staring at that same page for 10 minutes. She looked down. The page was blank. "I keep thinking about it," Amara said. About her face. About how calm she looked after she did it. Like she expected me to flinch. The tutor hesitated. "You didn't." "No," Amara said. "Because she wanted to break me. But my mother taught me something." She paused, recalling Naomi's voice from years ago. "Baby, when people try to hurt you, it's never about you. It's about the story they tell themselves when they see you." "She saw me as small," Amara whispered. "That's why I didn't scream." "Because she needed me to." Across the city, Naomi was in a boardroom meeting with her legal team, her phone lighting up with another headline. "Teacher suspended. School faces lawsuit as Raines Holdings' eyes take over." She smirked slightly. "They think this is about revenge," she said, flipping through documents. "They don't understand it's about transformation." One of her advisors, a man named Garrett Lewis, frowned. "Transformation can look like vengeance to people who deserve it." Naomi's smirk grew. "Let them think that." Her eyes flicked to the city skyline beyond the window. Towers branded with other people's names. Symbols of legacy that ignored her existence for decades. She could already imagine the next name lighting up in gold. Raines Academy. Meanwhile, inside Westbridge Academy, panic rippled through every hallway. The boardroom lights burned late into the night as men in suits argued, red-faced and desperate. The head of finance slammed his laptop shut. "If she buys us, we lose control of the charter. We'll be renamed in months." Another board member sighed. "Better renamed than erased. If she pulls her donations, we're bankrupt by winter." Principal Harmon just stared at the table, fingers trembling. "She's not bluffing," he said. "Naomi Raines doesn't bluff." "How do you know?" someone asked. Harmon swallowed. "She bought the building my brother worked in. Same story. One day, it was ours. The next, her name was on the deed." Silence fell. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and the rain tapping against glass. Somewhere in that silence, fear became respect. Back at the tower, Amara sat in her room scrolling through clips of herself online. Slowed-down videos, commentaries, think pieces dissecting her every gesture. She saw people calling her brave, others calling her spoiled. She watched strangers debate her trauma like a trending topic. For a moment, she wanted to scream, to break her silence. But then she remembered what her mother always said. The loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. So instead, she turned off her phone. Outside, the skyline shimmered, each window a reflection of something bigger than her pain. Naomi entered quietly, holding a small velvet box. "Here," she said, placing it on Amara's desk. Amara opened it. Inside was a golden key. "What's this?" she asked. "Your first building," Naomi said simply. "It's time you start learning what power feels like when it's in your hands." Amara stared at it, the weight of legacy suddenly real, cold, metallic, and beautiful. "Why are you giving me this now?" Naomi leaned in. "Because tomorrow we show them who we are. But remember, baby, never raise your voice. Let your silence do the talking." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The city glowed outside her window, and she thought of Miss Whitfield, probably pacing her apartment, terrified. For the first time, she felt something unexpected. Not rage, not satisfaction, but curiosity. What drives someone to hate that easily? She whispered to herself, maybe silence isn't enough. Morning came wrapped in thunder. The school gates were barricaded with protesters, the press waiting for a statement. But what they got instead was an email, brief, elegant, final, effective immediately. Westbridge Academy is under new ownership. All staff will report for restructuring. Naomi Raines, CEO. And just like that, the entire system that had failed Amara in one violent moment now belonged to her. But she didn't celebrate. She just watched, quietly, because this wasn't victory yet. This was the shift before the storm. If you think Amara's silence was power, wait until you see what she does when she finally decides to speak. Stay close. What's coming next will redefine what justice looks like when it's written by the ones who own the pen. By the third day, silence was no longer possible. The city had become a machine of noise, reporters chasing shadows, social feeds overflowing with fury, hashtags burning hotter than wildfire. Every major network carried the story. Teen assaulted by teacher. Billionaire family steps in. The clip replayed on loop. That frozen second where Miss Whitfield's knee rose. The gasps. The blood. Amara's stare. The moment that had changed everything. Everyone had an opinion. Some called it a racial reckoning. Others said it was class warfare. But beneath the arguments, there was something deeper. An unease. An acknowledgement that the balance of power in the city had shifted. At the heart of it all, Amara stayed hidden. Inside Raines Tower, her phone vibrated nonstop. News anchors wanted statements. Civil rights organizations wanted partnerships. Old classmates wanted interviews. Her mother had confiscated the phone by noon. "Let them talk," Naomi said. "They'll choke on their own theories." But Amara couldn't ignore it. The whole world was dissecting her pain, her silence, her face. She saw a news anchor say her composure was chilling, almost arrogant. Arrogant. She turned the TV off. That word lingered in her mind like smoke. She thought about how easily people twisted black calm into arrogance, black silence into defiance, black pain into spectacle. And for the first time since it happened, she felt a tremor of anger, not at Mrs. Whitfield, but at the world watching like it was entertainment. Her mother entered the room, calm as always. "The acquisition's official," Naomi said. "We own the school." Amara turned. "And what happens to her? Whitfield?" Naomi said the name with surgical precision, like a word she didn't want to keep in her mouth. "We'll handle it quietly. The board has been dissolved. She'll never work in education again." Amara hesitated. "Is that justice?" Naomi tilted her head. "Justice is balance, not vengeance." "Feels the same," Amara murmured. Naomi's eyes softened. "Only to people who've never lost anything." Outside, thunder rolled again, the kind that made skyscrapers hum and the river shimmer with lightning. Down below, protesters gathered outside the school's gates, holding signs that read, "We stand with Amara, and no more silence." The crowd grew by the hour. Parents, students, teachers, activists, all chanting the same word that once defined the Raines family: power. But not everyone supported her. Talk radio stations buzzed with dissent. "This is a rich girl's vendetta," one host said. "They're ruining a woman's life over one mistake." Another voice chimed in. "Imagine if it were reversed. Would we be having this conversation?" Naomi listened to it all in her office, expression unreadable. Her assistant fidgeted. "Should we issue a public statement, ma'am?" Naomi shook her head. "No. Let them think we're unpredictable. Fear works faster than press releases. At that same moment, in a cramped apartment across town, Ms. Whitfield sat in darkness, blinds drawn, phone buzzing with unknown numbers. Her face was pale, her eyes red. On her laptop screen, her name trended beside the word racist. She clicked play on the video again, over and over. The impact, the blood, the silence. "What have I done?" she whispered. Her lawyer's voice rang through her voicemail. "They're offering a settlement, but you'll have to resign. There's no saving your license." Whitfield stared at her reflection in the black screen. Her breath came shallow, uneven. "She didn't even fight back," she murmured. She stopped mid-sentence, realizing that was what haunted her most. Not the act itself, but Amara's stillness. That stillness now echoed through every news broadcast in America. By the weekend, the internet had crowned Amara a symbol. Memes of her calm expression flooded social media with captions like, "Grace under fire. When they hit you, but you own the floor they stand on." Celebrities reposted it. Politicians tweeted about it. One senator even quoted her single line, "You done?" calling it the quote of a generation. But inside her home, Amara didn't feel like a symbol. She felt like a wound. Late that night, she stood on the balcony of the tower, wind tugging at her hair, watching the flickering skyline. Her driver, Thomas, stepped out onto the balcony, holding a coat. "You'll catch cold, Miss Raines." "Thomas," she said softly, "why do people only care after something breaks?" He hesitated. "Because people need something to fix to feel human." She nodded slowly, looking down at the protest lights moving like fireflies below. "Feels like they're fixing the wrong things." The next morning, she woke to the sound of her mother's voice on the phone, firm, deliberate. "Yes, we'll be establishing a review board," Naomi said. "No, I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to make sure it never happens again." When she hung up, she looked at her daughter. "We're not hiding anymore. If they want a face, give them one." Amara frowned. "You want me to go public?" "I want you to tell the truth," Naomi replied. "Not theirs, yours." Amara thought for a long time, the words circling her mind like hawks. That afternoon, she walked into the press room. Cameras flashed like lightning. The world went silent as she took her seat. Her bruises had faded, but her eyes carried the storm. A reporter shouted, "Amara, how do you feel about your teacher losing her job?" She looked directly at him. "I don't want her job. I want change." Another yelled, "Do you forgive her?" Amara took a breath. The room leaned in. "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting," she said. "But I learned something that day. When they silence you, they don't expect you to own the microphone next." The crowd erupted. That clip would go viral in less than an hour. And if you think that was her biggest move, stay with me, because the Raines family was about to show the world what happens when the quiet ones stop whispering and start building. The Monday after the press conference, the city woke up to a new reality. Raines Holdings had gone from a name whispered in high-rise corridors to the headline that devoured all others. Every local paper carried the same two words in bold: Raines acquires Westbridge. For the school, it was a funeral. For Naomi Raines, it was a message. The takeover wasn't just financial, it was surgical. Within 72 hours, Raines' legal division had replaced the school's governing board, frozen all previous contracts, and begun auditing decades of misconduct. Every racist complaint ignored, every teacher reassigned, every disciplinary incident that targeted students of color, all of it surfaced under Naomi's quiet command. What had started as one woman's violence became the unveiling of an entire institution's rot. The superintendent tried to call a meeting with Naomi. She refused. Instead, she sent her Q, a man named Malik Cross, ex-prosecutor, sharp as obsidian. When he entered the district office, silence followed. His suit was black, his briefcase heavier than law itself. He placed it on the table, clicked it open, and said, "Mrs. Raines doesn't do meetings." She does results. The superintendent swallowed. And what does she want? An apology, Malik said. Not to her daughter. To every child you failed to protect. The man blinked. That's symbolic. Malik smiled without warmth. No, it's mandatory. Meanwhile, Naomi was miles away, sitting on her penthouse balcony, sipping tea as dawn spread across the skyline she owned. The world below was buzzing, but her phone lay silent. Power didn't chase noise, it made the world come to it. Inside, Amara was in the study, staring at the architectural plans for the school now renamed Westbridge Raines Academy. The blueprint glowed on the touchscreen table. New art wings, scholarship offices, STEM labs, a Raines Center for Equity and Leadership. A reflection stared back at her from the glass, part teenager, part legacy. You don't have to do this, she said softly, as if speaking to her own reflection. Her mother's voice floated from behind her. Don't have to, no. But we get to. Naomi approached, draping a shawl over her shoulders. Every empire has an origin story, baby. This is ours. Amara turned, eyes tired. But people are saying you're weaponizing money. Naomi smiled faintly. When they've used money to destroy us for generations, it's only called weaponizing when we start defending ourselves. Amara looked down. Feels like revenge. No, sweetheart, Naomi said, touching her cheek. Revenge is emotional. This is structural. Down below, the media had turned the Raines family into a paradox. Heroes to some, villains to others. The morning shows painted Naomi as a ruthless power broker. Social media, however, turned Amara into a symbol of grace, calling her the girl who made silence powerful. And in the middle of that storm, a quiet moment unfolded. Ms. Wood finally received a letter. It wasn't a lawsuit. It wasn't a demand for damages. It was an invitation. From Raines Holdings Education Division Subject. Transition Program Mrs. Whitfield, you are being offered an opportunity to attend our upcoming seminar on unconscious bias and restorative justice. Attendance is optional. Compensation will continue during your leave period. Naomi Raines, CEO Whitfield, read it 3 times. Tears blurred her vision. It wasn't pity. It was precision. The woman she had hurt wasn't destroying her. She was forcing her to face herself. But not everyone saw it that way. On talk radio, critics ranted. This is tyranny in designer heels. She's buying justice. Naomi didn't flinch. She knew what they didn't. That control of perception was more powerful than control of property. To seal her next move, she arranged a press conference of her own. The room filled with reporters, cameras, and flashing lights. Naomi stepped up to the podium, no notes, no teleprompter. Just that voice, smooth as glass and twice as cutting. My daughter's silence was never weakness, she began. It was restraint. And restraint, in a world addicted to outrage, is the truest sign of power. The crowd murmured. She continued, this isn't about a single act of violence. It's about what happens when systems protect the aggressor and silence the wounded. Westbridge Academy isn't just under new ownership, it's under new principles. A reporter shouted, is this about revenge? Naomi's eyes flicked toward him, calm but lethal. Revenge is small. We're building legacy. The clip spread like wildfire. Comment sections exploded. One user wrote, she talks like a queen who already owns the throne. Another said, this woman just turned trauma into strategy. Amara watched the speech from home, both proud and unsettled. She admired her mother's poise, her precision, but she also saw something deeper. The toll it took to carry so much history in her chest. That night, she wandered through the new construction site at the academy. The halls were empty, smelling of fresh paint and sawdust. In the main atrium, she found workers installing a marble plaque. The words carved into it stopped her breath. From silence, we rise. Amara Raines, she hadn't said those words. Someone had written them for her, but somehow they fit. Standing there, she realized that the story had grown beyond her. It had become a movement. a mythology, something she no longer fully controlled. And maybe that was the cost of legacy. Once you light a fire, you can't choose who it warms or who it burns. As she left the building, a reporter's voice echoed faintly from a passing TV in the lobby. The Raines family isn't suing for money. They're rewriting the system. But how far will they go? She paused at the door, her reflection catching in the glass, eyes steady. Far enough, she whispered. If you thought this was about a classroom fight, you're wrong. This is about empire. Stay with me, because the next move the Raines family makes will shake the city to its foundation. The city was finally quiet again. After weeks of breaking news, think piece arguments, and public outrage, silence returned. The kind that comes after an earthquake, when people step out to see what's still standing. Westbridge Raines Academy opened its doors for the first time under the new name. Reporters weren't allowed inside, but the gates were crowded with parents holding their children's hands, waiting to see if this new era would live up to its promise. Inside, sunlight poured through wide glass corridors where old banners once hung. Banners that used to celebrate test scores and trophies, but never the students themselves. Those had been replaced with murals. Brown faces, bright colors, raised hands, hope painted over history. Amara walked those halls like someone seeing both the past and the future in the same reflection. Teachers nodded. Students whispered her name like a rumor turned prayer. She paused at the entrance of her old math classroom, the place where everything had begun. The walls had been repainted, the desk replaced, but the air still held memory. She could almost hear the gasp again. The thud, her own voice saying, "You done?" Ms. Whitfield was there, standing by the window, smaller now, older somehow. Her posture had folded inward. No longer the towering authority she once played, but a woman trying to understand who she had been. "Amara," she said, voice barely more than a breath. Amara didn't move closer at first. "You're back. I asked to come," Whitfield said quickly. Not to teach, to talk. The air between them was fragile. "I saw the plaque outside," Whitfield said. "Your name's on it." "It's not about me," Amara replied. Whitfield's eyes shimmered. "It should be. You had every reason to hate me, and instead, you rebuilt the place I broke." Amara's fingers tightened around her notebook. "You broke more than a place. I know." Silence. Then Whitfield stepped forward, slowly, like approaching sacred ground. "I went to the program your mother sent me to. Bias training, therapy, restorative sessions. They made me look at everything I buried. The fear, the pride, the ugliness I thought I'd outgrown." Amara's gaze softened, but she said nothing. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Whitfield continued. "I don't deserve that. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't pretty, but it was human." Amara finally met her eyes. "Do you know what silence feels like?" she asked. "Not just not talking. I mean real silence. The kind where you're screaming inside, but the world only hears the echo of who they think you are." Whitfield nodded, tears running freely now. "I do." "Now I do?" Amara exhaled. For the first time in weeks, her shoulders relaxed. "Then maybe that's enough." They stood there for a long moment, the sunlight stretching between them like a truce. Outside, students were gathering in the auditorium for the school's reopening ceremony. Naomi was on stage, addressing the crowd with her usual composure, but this time her voice carried something softer. "This building used to be a place of fear for some," she said. "Today, it becomes a place of future. My daughter taught me that silence isn't just survival, it's strategy. And sometimes it's the space we need to build something better." Applause rippled through the hall. Cameras flashed, though Naomi had insisted the event not be televised. "Real change," she'd said, "doesn't need a spotlight." Back in the classroom, Whitfield extended a trembling hand. Amara looked at it, then at the sunlight pouring across the desk. The same kind of light that had watched her bleed months ago. She didn't shake it. She placed her notebook in Whitfield's palm instead. "Read it," she said. "It's not a diary. It's a plan." Whitfield opened the first page. It was titled The Raines Foundation for Equity in Education. Underneath were sketches, programs for scholarships, teacher training, youth mentorships. "You wrote this?" Amara nodded. "With Mom's help. Every city where Raines Holdings operates will have a fund like this. Kids like me shouldn't need billion-dollar parents to feel safe in a classroom." Whitfield blinked. "You're going to change the world." Amara smiled faintly. "No, we're just going to balance it." When she left the room, the halls were alive again. Laughter, footsteps, possibility. Later that evening, Naomi found her daughter on the rooftop garden of Raines Tower, city lights sprawling beneath them like fallen stars. "You did well," Naomi said. "I didn't do anything," Amara replied. She apologized. "That was her doing." Naomi studied her. "You gave her the chance to." They stood in silence, the skyline glowing gold. "Do you ever get tired?" Amara asked suddenly. "All the time," Naomi said. "But tired doesn't mean done." For the first time, Amara smiled, a small, real thing that reached her eyes. In that moment, power looked nothing like control or conquest. It looked like two black women standing above a city that once doubted them, breathing freely. Below, the streets hummed with life again. Reporters had moved on to new scandals. But within the school's freshly painted halls, a quiet revolution had already begun. Students were meeting after class, forming debate clubs, mentorship groups, leadership councils. The Raines name no longer whispered through fear. It resonated with hope. Justice hadn't been served by courts or headlines. It had been rebuilt. And somewhere inside her, Amara knew this was only the beginning. If you've ever wondered what healing looks like when power and grace meet in the same body, stay with me. Because what happens next will show how legacy is forged not in revenge, but in redemption. Spring arrived quietly, the city washed clean by weeks of rain. The world had moved on to new scandals, new outrages, but inside the Raines orbit, a different rhythm had begun. Slower, steadier, rooted in purpose. The frenzy that once surrounded Amara had turned into focus. Every morning, she took the elevator to the 47th floor of Raines Tower, her mother's old floor, now repurposed into the headquarters of the Raines Foundation for Equity in Education. The glass doors opened to murals painted by students, quotes etched into the walls, and a single inscription above her office door. "Build what they said you couldn't." She'd chosen that one herself. Her days were full, meetings with school boards, Zoom calls with educators, interviews she'd rather avoid but agreed to out of duty. Yet beneath the weight of it all, she felt something new, peace. At 17, she had seen the worst in people. Now, she was learning to build the best. One morning, while reviewing scholarship applications, she found one from a boy named Yalan Woods, a kid from the same neighborhood Naomi once struggled in. His essay began, "I don't want to escape my city. I want to fix it." Amara smiled. "He's the one," she told her assistant. Later that day, she visited Westbridge Raines Academy again. The changes were breathtaking. New computer labs, mental health centers, an art studio named the Amara Wing. But what moved her most wasn't the architecture. It was the atmosphere. Students laughed freely. Teachers smiled without fear. The tension that once poisoned the air had turned into possibility. Principal Harmon, now reinstated under Naomi's supervision, met her at the door. "We've had 0 suspension cases in 3 months," he said proudly. 0? 0. Instead, we do reflection sessions, conflict circles, real conversations. Amara nodded, her heart swelling quietly. "Then it's working." Outside, students gathered in the courtyard. Someone spotted her and shouted, "That's Amara Raines." The crowd cheered. Phones lifted, but this time not in scandal, in admiration. A small girl approached shyly, clutching a drawing. "Ms. Raines? I made this for you." Amara knelt. The drawing showed a tall building under a rainbow. On top of it, two stick figures held hands. One labeled me, the other you. Is that me? Amara asked softly. The girl nodded. You made our school pretty again. Amara smiled, tears prickling her eyes. No, sweetheart. We did. She walked away, tucking the drawing into her bag like a treasure. Later that night, she joined Naomi for dinner at home. Something rare these days. The table was quiet, candlelit, filled with the smell of rosemary and roasted chicken. Naomi sipped her wine, studying her daughter. You look lighter, she said. I feel it, Amara replied. For the first time since that day, I don't feel angry. Naomi leaned back. Anger is fuel, but it burns fast. Purpose lasts longer. Amara nodded. I think I finally understand what you meant when you said silence is power. Her mother smiled gently. It's not about keeping quiet, baby. It's about choosing when to speak. The conversation lingered like music. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon. Not violent this time, just distant, like a heartbeat. Later that week, the foundation hosted its first gala, themed Rebuilding Futures. The ballroom shimmered with gold lights, the city's elite rubbing shoulders with students and teachers. No one cared about class or wealth. For one night, everyone stood equal under the glow of possibility. When it was her turn to speak, Amara took the stage in a midnight blue gown, her hair braided like a crown. Cameras flashed, but she didn't flinch. She began quietly. The day I was attacked, I thought my life was ending. Turns out, it was beginning. The crowd leaned in. I realized something about power. It's not about owning buildings or money or fear. It's about changing the air in the room when you walk in so the next person can breathe easier. Applause rose, then softened as she continued. I forgive her, Amara said simply. Not because she asked. Because carrying that hate felt heavier than what she did to me. Naomi, watching from the front table, blinked away tears. That moment went viral overnight, but not for outrage this time. It was grace that spread. Millions of views, people posting. Forgiveness is power too. The following week, a journalist asked Naomi, do you think your daughter's too young to lead this foundation? Naomi smiled. She's not leading it. She is it. The world began to see it that way. By summer, Amara's foundation had funded 5 scholarships, rebuilt 3 schools, and trained 60 teachers in restorative education. Her face appeared on magazine covers beside headlines like From Victim to Visionary. But fame didn't move her. Late at night, when the offices were empty, she would stand by the window, looking out over the glittering skyline. The same city that once watched her bleed now pulsed with her name. Thomas, a driver, sometimes found her there, lost in thought. Everything all right, Miss Raines? He'd ask. She'd smile softly. Yeah, I just keep thinking how strange it is. That pain can plant gardens if you let it. And he'd nod, because he'd seen it too. For every headline, for every flash of controversy, there were quiet miracles happening. Kids graduating who once wanted to drop out. Teachers learning to listen instead of command. A community healing one conversation at a time. Power, Amara realized, wasn't about domination anymore. It was about design. She whispered one night, watching the stars. Mom built the city. I'll build its soul. If you think her story ended with forgiveness, stay close. Because transformation was just the halfway point. And the world still had one more lesson to learn from the girl they once tried to silence. Guilt doesn't knock. It just moves in and rearranges the furniture. For months after the takeover, Ms. Whitfield lived inside that guilt like a tenant who could never afford rent. Her apartment was bare now. Books boxed, mirrors covered. Every reflection, a reminder of the woman she used to pretend to be. The city had forgotten her name, but she hadn't. Each morning, she'd wake to the same whisper in her head. You need a child. Her career was gone. Her friends had gone silent. Her sister had stopped answering calls. And every time she ventured out for groceries, she felt the world tilt. The averted eyes, the muttered names, the tiny pauses when cashiers recognized her. She started walking at night, through empty streets, past the billboards that bore the Raines logo. There was no malice in her gaze now, only a strange wonder. How a girl she tried to break had built something so untouchable. One evening, she passed a bus stop poster. It read, "The Raines Foundation, Restoring Education with Empathy." Beneath the text was Amara's face, serene, strong, unbothered. Whitfield stopped walking. Her knees gave slightly. She sat on the curb and whispered, "I don't deserve forgiveness." A voice answered from behind. "You don't have to deserve it to start earning it." She turned. It was Malik Cross, Naomi Raines' cue, holding a folder. "I don't want your money," she said bitterly. "It's not money." He handed her the folder. "Mrs. Raines asked me to give you this." Inside was an enrollment form for the Raines Community Teaching Program, a pilot initiative for educators to mentor underprivileged students through art and literacy. Attached was a note written in Amara's hand. "Everyone has a lesson left to teach, even those who once failed their students." Whitfield read it 3 times, tears smudging the ink. She wanted to throw it away, but something inside her shifted, a crack where a light could enter. 2 weeks later, she showed up to the Foundation's training center wearing the same gray coat she'd worn the day of the incident. People stared, whispered. She didn't blame them. At orientation, she sat in the back, silent, until the doors opened and Amara walked in, not as a symbol this time, as a leader. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. Amara addressed the room. "This program isn't about erasing mistakes. It's about learning from them so no child has to carry the weight of our unlearning." She didn't say Whitfield's name. She didn't need to. Every word was a bridge. Afterward, Whitfield approached her slowly. "I thought you'd hate me forever." Amara shook her head. "I don't hate people. I hate patterns." Whitfield swallowed. "I don't know if I can change who I am." "Then start by changing what you teach," Amara replied. That was how it began, the long, uneven work of redemption. Whitfield spent her days tutoring teenagers who had been expelled from other schools. She read them poetry, listened to their stories, saw her younger self in their anger. Slowly, the students stopped flinching around her. One even called her Miss W. She cried in her car after hearing it. At night, she wrote letters to Amara she never sent. "Thank you for teaching me how to see." Meanwhile, Amara was changing too. The act of forgiving had lifted something heavy off her spirit. Her mother noticed. "You're smiling again," Naomi said one morning. "I think I'm finally breathing again," Amara replied. Whitfield's transformation spread quietly through the Foundation staff. Reporters eventually found her, but the headline this time read, "Disgraced Teacher Mentors At-Risk Teens. I'm learning from them." The public didn't forgive easily, but they listened. And in that listening, a different kind of justice took root. Not the kind that erased the past, but the kind that repurposed it. Late one evening, as the training center emptied, Amara found Whitfield alone at a chalkboard, writing a lesson plan. "What are you teaching?" Amara asked. Whitfield smiled weakly. "Empathy. Harder subject than algebra." Amara laughed, a real laugh that filled the room. For the first time, they sounded like teacher and student again, only the roles had reversed. When Whitfield finally walked home that night, she looked up at the Raines Tower glowing against the sky. She didn't see a monument to her failure anymore. She saw a lighthouse. She whispered a quiet prayer, not for forgiveness, but for the strength to keep becoming. And somewhere inside the tower, Amara looked out her window at the same sky, feeling a peace she couldn't explain. If you've ever wondered whether grace can reach the people who hurt us most, stay with me, because what comes next is the revelation that turns pain into legacy. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that doesn't warn you it's about to change everything. The sun had barely lifted over the skyline when the New York Times dropped an exclusive feature. The Raines legacy, the family that owns half the city. The article wasn't scandal, it was scripture. It told Naomi's story from her first real estate purchase to her billion-dollar empire. It told Amara's story, not as a viral victim, but as a visionary who turned her trauma into reform. It revealed every building, every foundation, every silent hand that had been shaping the city's future for decades. By noon, the city pulsed with awe. Cabbies used to read the article between fares. Teachers discussed it between classes. Students whispered it like legend. Even those who once mocked the Raines family now spoke their names with reverence. And in the center of it all, Amara sat at her office desk, staring at her own face on the front page. A photo of her smiling beside her mother under the headline, "Power Reimagined." Her assistant burst into the room. "You're trending again. But this time, it's love. They're calling you the architect of grace." Amara smiled faintly. Grace isn't architecture. It's air. At that moment, Naomi entered, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You ready for the world to finally know?" Amara took a deep breath. "I thought they already did. They knew what you endured," Naomi said softly. "Now, they'll know what you are." That afternoon, the mayor invited them to City Hall. Cameras lined the marble steps. The crowd outside was massive. Students, teachers, families, people waving banners that read, "From silence, we rise." Naomi walked beside her daughter, calm, regal. But it was Amara the crowd chanted for. Inside the rotunda, the mayor spoke. "Today, we recognize not just the Raines family, but the legacy they've built, a legacy that turned pain into policy, silence into structure." He turned to Amara. "You didn't just rebuild a school. You reminded us what leadership looks like." Amara stepped to the podium. For a moment, she said nothing. The silence felt familiar, but this time, it wasn't isolation. It was power. She looked out at the sea of faces, some smiling, some crying, all listening. "When I was 16, she began, "someone tried to teach me that power was violence. But I learned something different. Power is the quiet decision to rise when the world wants you to kneel." Applause thundered through the hall. She continued, voice steady. "My mother built this city's skyline. I'm building its reflection. The Raines Foundation isn't about charity. It's about rewriting the blueprint of belonging." In that moment, Amara wasn't a symbol or a survivor. She was a mirror, showing the city its own capacity for change. When she finished, Naomi reached for her hand. Cameras flashed. The crowd erupted. Outside, the chants began again. "Raines! Raines! Raines!" That night, the skyline shimmered with gold light. Dozens of buildings illuminated the word Raines across their facades in tribute. But in the penthouse, things were quiet. Naomi poured herself a glass of wine. The city's glow reflected in her eyes. "You know what this means," she said. Amara nodded. "No more hiding. You never were," Naomi smiled. "You were just waiting for the world to see what silence can build." They stood together at the window, mother and daughter, 2 generations of defiance and grace carved into the city's horizon. Meanwhile, in a small apartment on the east side, Ms. Whitfield watched the broadcast on her old television. She had been following the Raines story from afar. Each headline a reminder that redemption isn't just possible, it's earned. As Amara's speech replayed, Whitfield whispered, "She did it." Then she turned off the TV, picked up a stack of essays from her students, and smiled. The kids she mentored through the foundation had started calling themselves the Raines generation. And maybe that's what it was, not just a name, but a movement. Over the next few months, that movement spread. Schools across the country adopted the Raines model: trauma-informed teaching, empathy-based discipline, equity leadership programs. Colleges called it the Amara effect. But Amara didn't chase the spotlight. She worked quietly, traveling to schools, shaking hands with kids who reminded her of herself. During one visit, a boy with a shy smile asked, "Ms. Raines, how did you get so powerful?" She crouched to his level. "Because I stopped trying to be loud," she said, "and started learning to listen." He nodded like he understood something far bigger than his years. That night, back at the hotel, Amara wrote in her journal, something she hadn't done since the day of the assault. "I used to think silence was a cage. Now I know it's an echo, and what you fill it with becomes your legacy." She closed the book, set it on the nightstand, and exhaled. The city outside buzzed, alive with her name. But inside her, there was only stillness, the kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. And if you think the story ends here, wait until you see what happens when the girl who rebuilt a school becomes the woman who rebuilds a city. Because Amara Raines isn't done. She's just begun. 10 years later, the city had changed, and everyone knew who had done it. The Raines skyline glittered like a constellation of second chances. The old Westbridge building had become Raines Academy for Equity and Excellence, a school that now produced some of the most innovative leaders, artists, and activists in the nation. And at the top of Raines Tower, the tallest in the city, Amara stood looking out over it all. The same skyline that once looked untouchable now looked alive. Not with wealth or status, but with stories. The streets below were filled with the hum of the world she'd helped rebuild. A city that had learned to breathe differently. Her reflection shimmered faintly against the glass. Older now, poised, her features still soft, but her presence commanding. She was no longer the girl from the video. She was CEO Amara Raines, head of the Raines Group. Behind her, the office doors opened. Naomi entered slowly, her hair silver at the edges, her smile small but proud. "You always loved this view," she said. "I used to be afraid of it," Amara replied. "It made me feel small. And now?" Amara turned, eyes steady. "Now it reminds me what silence built." They stood side by side, the mother who built the empire and the daughter who gave it a soul. Below, the academy's graduation ceremony was about to begin. Students in blue robes filled the courtyard, laughter rising into the warm June air. Among them were dozens of scholarship recipients, kids who had grown up in the same neighborhoods Naomi once cleaned buildings in. Amara smiled faintly. "You coming to the ceremony?" Naomi chuckled. "You think I'd miss seeing my granddaughter's speech?" Amara laughed softly. "You really named her Naomi Jr. She came out looking like me," Naomi grinned. "I had no choice." Down in the courtyard, a familiar face was waiting. Ms. Whitfield, older, softer, still teaching, now head of mentorship at the Raines Foundation. Her eyes gleamed with quiet pride as she greeted each student crossing the stage. When she saw Amara approaching, she bowed her head slightly. "You did it," she whispered. Amara shook her head. "We did." The ceremony began. The crowd hushed as Amara took the stage. She looked out at the sea of graduates, faces filled with hope, diversity, and defiance. She began simply, "When I was 16, I learned the hard way that silence can hurt. But I also learned that silence can heal, when you choose what fills it." The students leaned